All righty, you guys. Okay. In our content, we talked about recognizing burnout, and I want to walk us through the nervous system and those loops and how our nervous system communicates to the brain. You guys have probably heard of the hypothalamus gland and the pituitary glands. And when I say these glands, realize when somebody tells you your adrenals are stressed or tired, that's the adrenals they're talking about. And what they're implying is they're not giving the feedback that they should be giving because they're tired or they're stressed out. And in my case, when I get fatigued adrenals, I get really hyper. And so mine are giving feedback too quickly, and it doesn't even make sense. So have you ever said these things out loud? My nerves are shot. It's getting on my last nerve, or I'm overwhelmed, or things like that. Have you said those things out loud? Because the reality is that your brain is listening and it's sending signals. When you tell yourself things, your whole body is consuming that knowledge and that information. And back in the day, this used to happen, like, let's talk about the Great Depression. This happened when people had no food to eat, or like they spiked cortisol when they were in danger, or they heard a cannon going off, or whatever. My point is that our fight or flight response is so much more sensitive than it used to be because of the dysregulated nervous systems that we're dealing with. And I'm going to bring this back to how it relates to nutrition, and it's so relevant. And I'm excited to share. So one important thing to keep in mind is that, like I said, our body recognizes it because we're sending messages, and the messages are sometimes loud and clear and sometimes they're not. But whether we're actually stressed or we're just under perceived stress, our body has the same response. So I want to show you what that looks like. And I'm going to show you by explaining it. The way that our nervous system is wound. And I know I have some science teachers in here, so I hope I make them proud. Usually they're sending me messages that I do make them proud, but I know they're also not on the call because they're teaching science. But we have all of these like connecting cords into our brain, and our cervical cortex is at the bottom of our brain. And that's where the wiring comes out. And it goes down through our spinal cord, and then it comes, each little system has wiring out, so it goes all the way down our back. That's why a lot of times, like, have you guys ever seen headlights and that you think you're getting pulled over, and you feel that alert, and it starts in your back, and then you can like feel your fingers tingle like a few minutes or a few seconds later. So that is that response that I'm talking about. I mean, we just think automatically we're going to jail because we did something wrong in 1999. And, so anyways, our bodies react that way because it's a perception of stress. Those go all the way down through our arms, our legs, our fingers, all the way down to our toes. And the nerve endings are at our toes. That's why sometimes like hot and cold can really affect the ends of our limbs a lot more. Like, you get itchy, you get more sensitive, and that's a nervous system thing. I want to share with you guys some really surprising signs of stress that we often don't notice. Airway issues. Ashley and I talked about this the other day. Asthma and airway inflammation can be a neuro loop sign of stress. That, like, tightness, obviously in our chest, we notice that in our heart, but the coughing, the inflammation, that could be a neuro sign of stress. Another one is bloating. So I have all these people that come to me for bloating. Bloating is always a hot topic, and they assume that it's always food related. More often than not, more often, especially if somebody's following, a CCN plan, bloating is related to stress. And here's why. When our body is in fight or flight, we go through that loop of perceived stress is the top of it, and then norepinephrine, which is adrenaline, and then cortisol. When we're in that loop, our body cannot digest. We cannot fire digestion. So when we're eating in a state of that loop of perceived stress, adrenaline, and cortisol, we can't digest. And so if we're not digesting, our body is adapting and surrounding, the nutrients with water. So they're getting more water to them so that they are protected until they can go where they need to go. So that's what causes the distension of bloating. So more often than not, if you're dealing with bloating, it is a stress. So what do we do to mitigate that? We do breath work before we eat. We do prayer before we eat. We get ourselves into a parasympathetic state before we eat. Another one is hives. I realized this as a young kid, like I was allergic to stress, but I never saw it coming. And I would get hives. And like, even as a teenager, and I'm really sensitive to Maggie right now because she's 13, almost 14. She's playing 2 sports. Like last night, she didn't even get home from the day till 9 p.m. Like never even stopped in, and had homework in every subject and has her midterms. I mean, the kid cares way more about school than I do. And I always tell my kids, like, you guys are getting these good grades for yourselves, not for me, so I don't pressure them. I don't put that even in their sports, I don't make them play their sports anymore. Anyways, but that perceived stress can lead to issues, and it has for her. And so I'll talk to you a little bit too about how I help my kids calm their nerves through these high stress states. So the hives, the tingling, itchy, blotchy, is the overactive histamine system, often due to stress. So we always think hives are an allergic reaction, which they can be, don't get me wrong, but it's often our histamine system making up for our weak adrenals, which is because too much cortisol in the system or dysregulated. And then another one is cognitive delays. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that word finding or creative thinking or writing or just the clarity that and consistency of your thoughts and your conversations. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a conversation, you're like, and that word, like that is a sign of stress. And that's something to like take a minute, maybe like go home. Maybe you weren't supposed to be there. You need to rest. So these are surprising signs of stress that I don't think that people realize that they are stress. The same client I was just telling you guys about that refuses to follow the food and the functional cleanse. She thinks that she has MS because she has these cognitive issues. And I'm like, oh girl, if you could really just give me 21 days. I wish I could do it for her. So to help you understand better, when we have a perceived stress, again, that leads to an adrenaline rush. And that leads to a surge of cortisol. A chronic fight or flight state is often the culprit of blood sugar issues. And this alone, no matter what food you're eating, can still lead to insulin resistance, even when you're eating the right food. If you're not mitigating the stress and the stressor and managing your cortisol, then it can still lead to insulin resistance. That's why, as an integrative nutritionist, I have to help you understand the whole body. Food alone cannot be the hero. Food is always the foundation, but it can't by itself be the hero when somebody's dealing with this much stress. So speaking of food though, foods that do help regulate the nervous system are foods that are high in amino acids. Amino acids are obviously the building blocks of protein, but protein is so much more than just our muscular system. Protein is found in every organ in the body, and it helps to regulate, for instance, I always bring up Alzheimer's because that's something I'm studying these days because it's a family history thing, but they can identify it based on protein in the brain. And amino acids have a huge impact on neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters are part of that HPA, that hypothalamus gland, the HPA axis. Neurotransmitters play a huge role in that, which is why exercise plays a huge role in our mood and our mood stability. And so you can see like all the connections, which is why I can't just focus on food, but foods high in amino acids are really helpful in regulating nervous system dysregulation and functioning. So those are obviously like complete proteins. You guys probably already know that. So sorry if I'm repeating myself, but other foods like the Ayurvedic are the warming foods, like warm power bowl and soup. You know what's annoying? I love soup. My kids love soup. Everybody in my family in my house loves soup. My neighbors love soup. People say, if you make soup, bring me some. And the one person, he's like, Oh, honey, what do you want for dinner? Anything but soup. Come on. Every freaking person on our street and in our neighborhood wants soup except you. I just can't.
It's my Chris, which funny. I
Yeah.
don't know if people know this, but both of our husbands' names are Chris. So we have to differentiate like my Chris and your Chris.
Yes.
My Chris also hates soup and he makes fun of me every time I make it because it's so easy. It's like one pot. It's just, and my kids are iffy about it. They mostly eat bread, but he's like, are we like 80 years old? Do I need to take out my dentures? And I was like, soup is not an old person food. Like normal people enjoy soup. So maybe it's a Chris thing. I don't know.
I mean, Chris might be at the top of the list for annoying things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so soup obviously is a huge contributor to helping regulate the nervous system, and all three tridoshas can improve their digestion with soups. Foods that are high in omega-3 are really helpful. Low mercury fish. And I say low mercury because at one point in my life, all I wanted was swordfish and high mercury fish, and it definitely caused an issue. Heavy metals. Anyway, so low mercury fish. And by the way, you can't never eat that. You just don't want to be eating it, incorporating it every week. Like salmon, you could eat it as much as you want and never have an issue. Trout, same thing. Flax, chia, some of our like shrimp and that sort of things, those are fine too. So flax, chia, walnuts are also our non-seafood high omega-3 foods. And then other antioxidants are chamomile, turmeric, berries. Those all have antioxidants that help to regulate those neurotransmitters. And then ghee, coconut oil, olive oil are really beneficial for all three tridoshas and helping to regulate the nervous system. And I already mentioned proteins, but I'm going to mention that again. So complete proteins that are high in amino acids, they have a big impact on neurotransmitters. And one particular, turkey. I don't know if you guys notice that when you eat turkey, like on Thanksgiving, you feel like really calm, like too calm to do the dishes. That's me. I'm way too calm to do the dishes right now because it's the tritotrophin, which is the amino acid that turkey has. Bananas also have this amino acid, which is really cool. So food does play a huge role, but the most important aspect is what you guys are already experts on, which is balancing your macros and regulating your blood sugar, which plays a huge role in your nervous system health. So the CCN meal will always do the trick, but not without working on the whole body. So understanding the nervous system is about understanding our wiring and being able to rewire. One thing we do in our house is for my family, for my kids, for my clients that I work with, is I ask if they need to start again. So I let my girls vent about their perceived stress. For instance, like I said, Maggie didn't get home last night until 9, and Mila had to play in JV and varsity. And Mila's a 6th grader, so she's already playing up by playing JV, and then playing varsity. She's playing against 8th graders, and that stresses her out. And we're already dealing with a low adrenal load, which again, I'm going to share more about this because I've been researching like a mother with Mila because of some things that have come up with her. But I try to help them mitigate their stress by understanding their perception of it. So they both came home saying they had homework in every subject, and they have midterms coming up, and they have games again tonight. So Mila has to play JV and varsity tonight. Maggie's only having to play varsity, but soccer never ends. She has to go to Atlanta this weekend for soccer. So she's just having a hard time, having enough time in the day. My husband was complaining that they're leaving their stuff around, and I'm like, that's because they have no time. Like, you can assign it to Claire and JoJo because those girls have all the time in the world. Like, if you have time to turn TV on, then you can help pick up after your sister. So anyway, I asked them like, okay, well, what's the first thing that is going to make you feel better? Taking a shower. Okay, so go take a shower. And then after the shower, they have a warm meal to come out to. So then they eat their dinner. And I said, well, what's the subject that you can finish first? Okay, well, we work through that subject. And then once they're like out of the shower and eat, they already feel so much better. Like their perception of all that stress wasn't the same as reality, right? And so helping our kids, people that were around understand reality versus perception is a huge key to regulating our nervous system. It takes 30 days to rewire our nervous system. Just like that's why they say like breaking habits, making habits, all these things. There's like 21 to 30 days of these micro habits that Ashley's always talking about, the James Clear stuff, to rewiring our nervous system. So whenever somebody in my house, even myself, gets all manic about, they're overwhelmed, then we stop. We have a redo. Sometimes we restart our whole day. I bring the whole family together. Okay, team, we're going to restart because everybody is wired a little too hot right now and it's not working for anybody. And so we're going to just restart. So always offer your chance to have a redo. When I start to feel overwhelmed about my to-do list, especially when bedtime's coming up, which did we post that bedtime PTSD? Yeah. Anyway, you guys will read all about that too. But leaning into the reality versus perception. And it's okay to be stressed by our perception, but it's also important to put it into perspective. I want people to recognize it so that they can heal from it. So anyway, at the end of the day, as we're collecting our thoughts, when we focus on our gratitude, we're literally rewiring our nervous system. So you guys will notice in every challenge that we do, and I'm always reminding you in our to-do list for our last 90 days, we are practicing gratitude. And as we practice gratitude while drifting off into our sleep, we're actually setting our circadian rhythm up for a successful night. It actually rewires the nervous system. So if you could practice gratitude at night for 30 days in a row, you will have helped rewire your nervous system. So catch yourselves in those times of overwhelm, because I get it, like all the gift wrapping and all the, I've told Ashley, but I have 5 godchildren. I have more than 5, but 5 that have December birthdays. So I have, the Christmas and the birthdays, and I have 13 nieces and nephews on one side and 5 on the other side. And it's just a lot of extra stuff, but as long as we can understand our load and compare it to what real stress is, like all those people I'm shopping for are healthy. All of the, like perceived stress versus reality. The reality of real stress is not what I'm perceiving. This is something I've been working on for years. And I finally feel like I have it nailed down this year. So in times of those high stress, if the ways that we're talking about already, the foods and that sort of thing aren't working, or you need more help, then I have some tips. Have you guys tried binaural beats yet? I have people that struggle with meditation turn on binaural beats, and it helps to regulate the brain waves so that you can calm the nervous system. So binaural beats, I actually type in just on YouTube Christian binaural beats because that helps me meditate better when my brain's too rattled. Another way, if this is something that's like a major issue for you or one of your loved ones, is the Muse headband. I think this was developed by neurosurgeons or neuro something. I know this was developed by like really smart scientists. So the Muse headband, it's just an attachment that you put on your head, and it helps to regulate those brain waves if the binaural beats don't work. It's not that cheap, so don't get it unless you really need it. The red light therapy helps to create a sense of calm, and that happens on a cellular level. The infrared sauna can actually reset our nervous system in the 40 minutes of sweating. Acupuncture, oil massage, castor oil wraps, those are all the Ayurvedic way of regulating the nervous system. And then some supplements that really help to regulate stress. If you go on Thorne and type in stress, they have a whole line of stress supplements, but adrenal support is usually needed at this time of the year. It's especially needed for me. Adrenal cocktails, those include like trace minerals or like electrolytes, and B complex. Omega-3s are a given. If you don't eat fish 3 times a week, like you should be taking omega-3s at least 3 times a week. Those are not something you need daily necessarily, but if you're not a big fish eater, and then you need to be taking those. So not to be too long-winded, but do you guys have any questions on this topic? On that stress overload? Every individual client I was meeting with was just like rattling off like their stressors, because we can't quit our jobs in December. Me and Ashley actually used to have like really mellow Decembers, and now we don't anymore. And it's been, harder to manage all the stuff. Like I'm trying to do less stuff I don't like. And then I still do it. Like cards. I don't like to do Christmas cards. I bring this up every year. I don't like to do them. My husband does, but he doesn't do them. I do. Thankfully, the girls help now. Do you guys have any questions? Did I miss any chat? Oh, I do. I did. Oh, my husband doesn't love soup for dinner either. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to trick him. I'm just going to give him the soup without the broth and be like, here's your stir fry. Just trick him. He's not in the kitchen when I'm doing dinner anyways. As somebody said, I know that I have a very dysregulated nervous system. I'm working on that. Could that be that I really don't like to eat salads? I like warm foods. Actually, the warm foods are better. You can do warm salads. Obviously, you don't want to have wilted lettuce, but you can do other greens like mixed cabbage. I love warming my mixed cabbage, not warming it, but actually cooking it, roasting it in my air fryer. I don't do cold salads this time of year very often. So partly because our nervous or our digestive systems don't fire as much without the daylight, without the vitamin D. So this is a time of year we do need more warming foods. So it's not just the stress of the holiday season, it's everything. It's less sunlight, it's less outdoor time, it's all of it. So, I don't know why God thought we were cut out for winter. We're not. We're just not winter beings. So it's just a time that you just got to get through it. Any other questions? Thanks for being here. I'm really excited for our next call. I'm excited that we were able to wrap up this dosha. Even when we were working on the content for the new year, we're like, gosh, people still need to understand their dosha. So we're keeping that content in the portal. And we're trying to build the portal where you guys will be able to reference back to things forever and ever. You just need to know what to search for. I don't know if you ever search recipes and then a topic comes up. I'm like, oh, did you know that, Ashley? Like topics are intermingled in the recipes.
Oh.
Like if you search like trying to think ginger or what did I just search the other day? I think it was ginger. Yeah. Then it brings up the topics on ginger too. So that search engine works for everything. So I would love to hear stories about you guys doing redos, having redos when it comes to your perception of stress versus your reality of stress. I really want to understand that. Somebody said Joyful Belly website has suggestions for December food. Yes, I think that is the Ayurvedic lady. That website is really helpful. Awesome.
Yeah, they have one for each month and it talks about ways to de-stress, pamper yourself. Like December, they're talking about all the root veggies, those warm foods, the soup that you're talking about, Kara.
Mm-hmm.
And then they break it down like for Vata, try eating this and not doing that, so on and so forth, like Pitta and Kapha. It's really, really good website.
I remember looking at that website. It is really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Our next call
is the sauna blanket. Sorry, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Is it something I could do at night, or is it really like a morning thing because it's going to kind of wake me up and keep me up at?
No, actually, it will put you to sleep.
Okay.
The problem I have with it is I like to rinse off. I'm not even a big shower person, but I do rinse off after my sauna blanket. I know you guys will be shocked to know. So that's the only thing is you're sweaty, but you're really tired. Not really tired, but really relaxed. So I would say if somebody said do a sauna then a cold plunge, that would be a good morning routine.
See, and I feel like I have the opposite. If I do it too late at night, I feel wired. Like I'm in it when I'm in it and I'm super relaxed and I will nod off sometimes. But like if I've done it right, probably because I shower after and
that's what I mean. Like the shower after kind of wakes you back up. Yeah. So the best time of day to do anything would be 2 hours before bedtime. Like you don't really want to be messing with bedtime routines within 2 hours if possible. And I know that's not possible for everybody working outside the home, but yeah, that would be the best time to sauna. There's not really a bad time to sauna, but it definitely shouldn't mess with your sleep cycle. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.